Boutique Podcast is a show for mature audiences only. Listen at your own peril. Landing now at the Piece of Junk Studios in Lexington, Kentucky, a cornucopia of nerd culture with news and reviews from the genres of comics, science fiction, horror, gaming, and even a little cosplay. It's the Geeks Boutique Podcast. And now, here's your hosts, JD, Zack, and Jason!
Hello, and welcome to the Boutique, you geeks. Today we bring you episode number 1 of the Geeks Boutique Podcast. This issue, we bring you our comic book dick pics of the month and discuss comics' role in social issues in our segment Beyond the Pages. In the Mausoleum, we take a fresh look at the new Joe Hill graphic novel. In Hillbillies on Film, we'll review the avalanche of exciting trailers that have been released recently, including the first Star Wars Episode 8 trailer. Then, we'll all briefly step into Zack's cosplay closet for a report from the Indianapolis Comic Con. All this and more on this month's Geeks Boutique. All right, welcome to the show, fellows. Good to see you again.
Hey. Welcome.
I thought, since this is episode 1 and everything, we should probably go around the room and kind of introduce ourselves and tell our listeners about our kind of geek history, the types of things we're into, what we're nerds for, and how we found those loves in our life, and just a little bit about ourselves, so they'll want to know why they should care about what we have to say. John, you want to lead off with that? You're the elder statesman here.
Yeah, the elder statesman. Yeah,
closest to death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. I started collecting comic books when I was about 8 years old, and that would have been in 1973.
I don't think I was alive yet.
I know I wasn't alive yet.
Yeah, that was 1973, and at that time, kids collected comics. When we rolled them up, put them in our back pocket, and we traded them. It's kind of like baseball cards as well, but baseball cards always fell victim to being placed on the spokes of your bike.
Yeah.
That's when I started collecting comics. I can actually remember the very first comic that I ever had, and it made a huge impression on me, was because, Bruce Lee was big at that time, and Marvel had a book called Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu.
Yes.
And I had Giant Size #1. It was the very first comic I ever had. And from that point forward, I was just hooked on comic books. Fantasy, science fiction, it just kind of naturally worked its way into my life. I think the very first science fiction novel I ever read was Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Probably read that when I was about 12 years old, and it just blew my mind, about this guy traveling to Mars, via some sort of mysterious method, and how, he's basically like a superhero on Mars. I mean, he was used to Earth's gravity, so he was stronger than anybody who lived on Mars. He could jump like, he could leap tall buildings, in a single bound. In a single bound. And that from that point forward, I was just totally sold. Another big thing too, my dad was always into, science fiction. He kind of liked that kind of stuff, and he liked Star Trek. So I watched Star Trek from the time I was a little kid. I mean, I watched the original Star Trek cartoons. Seemed like there was just a lot out there for kids to grab onto then. I mean, we didn't have video games, at that point, which I think has probably taken over a lot of that. But Star Wars, too, was a big influence because I saw that when I was 11 years old. I saw it in Paintsville, Kentucky. I remember me and my cousin going over there with my mom. She took us, and it came like one of the worst rainstorms that I can remember in history. She wanted to turn around, and we were begging her not to, and we went over there, and our minds were totally blown by seeing something like that, and that was 1977. So how about you, Zack?
Downhill from there. Huh?
Yeah, all down there. How about you, Zack? What about you, man?
It's hard to say exactly what it was that got me into all the nerd stuff, and I mean, I really like the entire gauntlet. Definitely more of a fantasy guy. I think honestly, it goes back to just reading a lot as a kid and just loving that kind of enjoying Tolkien, enjoying like the Harry Potter books and all those series. But thinking about definitely like seeing Lord of the Rings, like I can think back on it. My mom actually took me to see all 3 Lord of the Rings, but like my parents were never really into like all like the geek stuff. So I think it just like synthesized. I think I fell into like a radioactive vat of nerddom and don't remember it, and that's like how I'm here now. But It's kind of evolved. Started, definitely talking about the video games. I can just think back to my childhood though about Pokemon. That's, I think, what tipped it all off. And recently, kind of getting ahead of myself here at the Indiana Comic Con, I got to meet Jenny Natachini, who did the voice of Ash Ketchum in Pokemon. And so it was like a little piece of my childhood back. And but really, it's kind of just evolved more into like doing more of the art stuff now and doing like the cosplay making and the weapons making and all that kind of stuff. So definitely all that fantasy going on, and then the like D&D and a lot of tabletop games, because there's just something great about being able to hit your friend in the face with a broadsword and there be no ramifications for it except for a little bit of hurt feelings. That and like the LARP stuff, I was big into that, and the Ren fairs, and I think it really boils down to there's a lot of aggression I need to work out, but society doesn't feel it proper to bean somebody with a battle axe anymore. Like, that's kind of gone out of favor. It's a little bit of a social faux pas nowadays. But that's really the gist of it. Just kind of, like I said, just synthesized my own nerddom. I think growing up pretty much as an only child and like living way out in the country, not near anybody else. So that was kind of my refuge. I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy this nerd stuff. And it's just taken off from there.
So I think maybe I had the opposite experience because I had two older brothers growing up. So, you recycle clothes, well, they would recycle their nerd stuff. My oldest brother, Jeff, was a big Star Trek fan, the original series, of course. Mm-hmm. And he'd get us all together, and we'd try to play Star Trek. And I always got stuck being Mr. Spock, which I hated. So
I could see that, though.
but it's stuck. You are still Mr. Spock.
You are Mr. Spock.
We had this old turntable, and I had to like lift the cover up and look down in there and tell him, the Klingons are closing in. And then I'd stand there and wait for him to tell me to say something else. Then was the middle brother, Rusty. He was the one that kind of got me into comics. And we'd get a little bit of an allowance every week, and we'd go down to the Winchester Tobacco Warehouse. They have a big flea market on Saturday mornings. And he'd just have, long box after long box of these cheap old comics. And everything's a quarter. So you could clean up on a couple bucks. And I was the same way. I went for all the Master of Kung Fu stuff or the horror stuff. And a little bit of superhero stuff here and there. I could never actually find a run of anything. So I have this weird scattered knowledge of comics, except I like the Kung Fu stuff and I like the horror stuff. Kind of went on a hiatus, I guess, through most of high school, and then in college I got back into some hardcore nerdery, but it was more like gaming stuff this time around. And that's when Magic the Gathering hit, and we all went batshit crazy for that. God, I'd like to have that money back, or the cards.
Or the card, you'd be better off to have the cards back.
I could retire.
Yeah.
And then we got into a lot of D&D, and this was back when they did, not the advanced D&D, but the more simplified version. It's probably the second edition, AD&D 2 or AD&D 3, but they had a simpler version on the side. And then after that, I got into the miniature games like Warhammer. I was big into Warhammer, kind of still am. So maybe
still am?
Kind of, sort of still am.
He's a miniature painting machine.
Exactly.
But so I don't quite have the depth of knowledge of either of you guys, but I'm a little bit of maybe a nerd jack of all trades. I've dipped my toe in damn near everything at one point or another over the years, and so I might have as good a resume, but it's widespread.
Good enough. You're definitely a jack something. I'll give you that.
Psst. Hey, buddy. Come over here. Comic Book Dicks is our comic segment. It's the place where we each dive into our local comic shop and try to sleuth out a good read amongst the rubbish. We might be behind the 8-ball, so you better holster your piece, gumshoe. We've got work to do.
Okay. For all of our new listeners, our next segment is called Comic Book Dicks. Clear those nasty thoughts out of your head. We see ourselves as comic book detectives, where we go into local comic shops, dig around, and try to find a couple good selections every month from all the rubbish that's out there. We each picked one book, at least, for each episode. And John, why don't you start us off and tell us what your comic book dick pick of the month is?
Well, my dick pick of the month, it's actually nothing that's really current. I went back
That's fine.
Yeah, the Lexington Comic-Con happened, back in March, and
March 17th.
and Mike Huddleston was there. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him. His work on Harley Quinn and a book called The Coffin, but he was also known for doing a comic book adaptation of The Strain. And The Strain was a story that was written by Guillermo del Toro and then was made into a series on FX. But they adapted that into a comic book, and the writer, the artist was Mike Huddleston, and he was a pretty cool guy. His artwork is absolutely incredible. He really knows how to tell a story. His pacing, his panels. I know that a lot of modern comic artists, I'm not so sure that their work is eye-catching, but I'm not so sure they really know how to tell a story in a page. Mm-hmm. To me, a comic page is a work of art, but it is also a moving story. And I always think that, when I find guys like Mike Huddleston, I want to check out their stuff. So what I did is I went out and I picked up like the first 2 graphic novels, compilations of The Strain that were drawn by Mike Huddleston. It's written by David Lapham of Stray Bullets fame. If anybody knows about, the independent comic boom in the late 80s and the early 90s, they'll know about David Lapham and Stray Bullets. Fantastic writer. But I can't recommend this book enough. Basically, great writer, great artist, great concept, and a brief summary of that concept is that it's about vampires. Mm-hmm.
Can't go wrong with vampires.
Can't go wrong with vampires. And these vampires are kind of gross. They have these gigantic tongues that dart out.
Because I hate the sexy vampire thing.
Yeah.
These kind of like the mutants in Blade 2, kind of like those mutant vampires,
or the old Nosferatu.
Yeah,
that's what they look like.
Or even 30 Days a Night. Those are good vampires.
Right, and they don't necessarily bite you. They have sharp teeth, but the thing that causes you to become a vampire is this gigantic tongue, which extends beyond their mouth. By about 4 or 5 feet, and it has like a stinger on the end, and when that stinger hits you, man, you're toast.
You're done.
You're toast. You've become one of the undead. And
move over Gene Simmons.
Right. And there is a controlling vampire called the Master. I don't know if that's a little bit of a swipe from Buffy, but there is this controlling vampire called the Master, and all these other supporting characters from the CDC who become like the heroes of the film, and a rat exterminator named Vasily. He's a Russian rat exterminator who becomes kind of a hero in the film, or not the film, but in the story. But it's a great book. I would recommend it highly. At least the first 2 graphic novels, which I've read, and I read them pretty quick. I devoured them. No pun intended.
So your 4-foot tongue with the stinger on it.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm sorry, Jason. You're closer. You're getting the tongue first. I'm out the door.
So, great book. Great book. Great stories. So,
Zach, you were saying you discovered something cool and unique up at IndieCon.
Yeah, they're like going down the artist alley, just kind of looking at everybody's stuff. They had a lot of the comic book writers there, and I was just kind of perusing, just seeing what everybody had sitting out. And then there was a really cute girl came up to me, and she's like, "Hey, can I tell you about my comic?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, you can. You can tell me about anything you want to tell me about at all. You can knit a sweater, and you have my undivided attention. Like I'm heavily focused right now. I don't care what it's about. I'm interested." But it ended up actually being a really interesting story of actual substance, to the point that I ended up buying the comic. And the comic that she wrote was called Nora. It's kind of like it's got a little bit of X-Files kind of aspect to it. The main character is she's like a tougher, gritty heroine. Kind of makes you think of more like a Jessica Jones type as far as something to reference. But the overall story of it, at least from what she told me and what I've gathered from the first issue of the comic, is it's this woman that she's, through some kind of experimentation, has now the ability to be what she describes as a coma fisher, meaning like people that are in a coma, she goes in and kind of retrieves them. And the first issue of it is she's sitting in the hospital room with this family and their daughter. The daughter's in the coma, and the family's kind of feeding her information to relay to the daughter, to get the daughter to trust her so that she can get her out of there. And the first one just kind of establishing the premise. It's a pretty simple issue. Not a whole lot of development goes on, but it does lay the groundwork for at least the personality of the character. The art style was what really got me, though, is that the entire comic is done up in kind of like in oil pastels and a little bit of cell shading to a degree, but it's mostly kind of like an oil pastel painting look to it. And as far as being a first issue of a new writer, definitely always good to see some new talent, see new ideas, because, I mean, we look at the mainstream stuff, and you can kind of always tell what they're going to turn out. It's always going to be these big blockbuster superheroes. So it's kind of neat to see a story of somebody who's going to be a little bit more small scale. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, maybe we can help her out. We'll maybe put some links to her stuff on her Facebook page or Instagram account. So
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. When being the first issue, that was kind of what I got talking to her about. I was like, yeah, that's great. I was like, I'll take this back. We're looking at doing a podcast. She's like, oh, do you have some business cards? I was like, that's a cute notion. This is episode 1. We're just happy to have sound equipment. Nobody listen to this crap just yet. Don't get too excited, honey. I'm not going to give you your big time.
See you next year and we'll talk.
Exactly. I'll message you when we're famous. What about you, Jason?
I guess I went a little more mainstream than you guys. I picked up the first volume of the Ta-Nehisi Coates run on Black Panther, which is selling really well for Marvel. If you don't know who Ta-Nehisi Coates is, you oughta. I'm just going to read from the back of the book here. He writes for The Atlantic. He's the national correspondent for The Atlantic magazine. Takes on politics and culture issues. In 2015, he won the National Book Award for Between the World and Me, and he's also a recipient of the MacArthur Fellowship. Really good book. I should mention the illustrator is Brian Steelfries. It's been running for a while. This is the first volume, though. It covers, I think, the first 5 issues of the run. It's kind of a dark era in Wakanda. The Black Panther is kind of facing a bit of a civil war. There's a lot of unrest in the country, and he's torn between like taking it on, and being delicate with it because they are his people and he's their king. And
so, like, what's causing the unrest in the?
Well, there's a faction. He's trying to uncover some of the mystery during the book. There's a faction within Wakanda that's kind of souring the people's opinion of the king. And they've had some bad luck recently. A Doctor Doom invasion is kind of shaking the country.
Yeah, that would kind of ruin the day a little bit.
He still may be the ultimate guy behind the scenes, but there are some people working against him within Wakanda. Some of his personal guard have gone over to the stray side, and he and his mother are both trying to work out how to handle it delicately because they are the royalty of Wakanda without shattering the country. It's not all that action packed. It's a little political, but it's handled well. It's not too in your face. I found it a really good read, and I think I'll stick with it. I'm not the kind of guy to go out and chase down all the individual issues, so I'll wait for Volume 2 to come out. But I was really pleased with it, and I kind of like the artwork. It's very straightforward, but the guy does a lot of work with what I would call like negative space. It works well because, of course, his costume is black, and then there's a lot of just kind of muted colors throughout the book. I'm no artist, so bear with me. But I was struck by how much just blackness there is in the book, how much shadow he uses. I'm flipping through here. I know that's not good for
And I can see it from over here. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I love those Brian Steelfries covers. I remember I saw him first on doing some covers for Doc Savage back in the early 90s, and I was really impressed with his artwork at that time. And this is a little bit different from what I saw back then, and it's still very good.
I'll let you borrow it
very
if you want.
Yeah, for those of you listening at home, because this doesn't translate so well over audio, imagine a really great Black Panther comic book. Now imagine it greater, and that's the artwork. There you go. Just think of your favorite Black Panther comic cover, darken up the shadows a little bit, and there's what we have now. And now we're all happy because now we all have what we want.
Yes. If you haven't read it, go out and pick it up. The trade paperback is called The Nation Under Our Feet. It's good stuff. Yeah, another cool thing is at the end they had some room in the magazine. They included a reprint of the first appearance of Black Panther.
Oh, wow.
Which John was when? Fantastic Four?
It's Fantastic Four, but I
52.
Okay.
Fantastic Four 52. So there's a reprint of that in the back. And it looks hokey as all get out, but good stuff.
Right. Designed by the king, right? Jack Kirby. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, in our next segment, we call it Beyond the Pages because we take up some of the bigger issues that might be confronting the comics industry. A lot of stuff going on. I don't know who Marvel ticked off, but they've been taking some PR hits as of late, and I thought I'd bring up a couple of these. and throw them out there to our panel of experts and get their take on it. March 17th, the new Iron Fist TV show debuted on Netflix. I have one episode left to go. I made it this far. Honestly, I don't really care what happens.
Stop watching. It makes the show actually better if you don't watch the last episode.
I'm going to do my due diligence and watch the final episode, but I'm not enthralled.
The story makes more sense without the last episode. It does nothing but muddy the waters.
Yeah, well, the fact that you have to say that you've done your due diligence, or you have to do your due diligence, speaks volumes about how bad it is.
Yeah. It's a labor. Well, I can't say labor of love. It's a labor.
It is a total labor.
But, before the show even really got rolling, it took a lot of criticism from the cultural appropriation crowd. Of course, Danny Rand is as white can be, and he's rich to boot, no less.
Right.
So, of course, we all know he is the Iron Fist who visited Kunlun and trained hard to become the Iron Fist. And there's been a lot of criticism because, Finn Jones was cast as Danny Rand. True to the comic books, but maybe not true to what people would want to see in this day and age. So
Right.
You guys want to weigh in on that?
Well, I mean, Roy Thomas, the creator of Iron Fist, the writer of Iron Fist back in Marvel Premiere, and that was probably 1973, 74. So we're talking at least 40 plus years ago that this comic came out. He took some heat. He came out and said that he felt like the fact that they were calling this cultural appropriation was a bit ridiculous, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And I'd have to agree with him. He basically said, get a life. Iron Fist is basically just an adventure story. And that's how he wrote it. And you got to remember the context of all this. In 1973, just like I talked about, I have Master of Kung Fu Giant Size #1 was my first comic book in 73. I mean, martial arts were...
all the rage.
Yeah, all the rage. I mean, Bruce Lee, who basically brought it to the American public, basically, brought martial arts to the forefront. And I don't think that anybody was hollering cultural appropriation back then. But then again, cultural appropriation, the whole very definition of it is that you're appropriating someone's culture other than your own so that you can demean it. That's what cultural appropriation means. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing demeaning about Roy Thomas creating Iron Fist as a white guy. I don't see that. But the social justice lexicon has taken this term, under their belt as meaning it transfers to racism, I guess. And then they they talk about it being cultural appropriation, but then they don't talk about what harm it's doing. I mean, it's, it's not cultural appropriation. Blackface would be cultural appropriation.
Agreed, yeah.
So,
well, that was kind of one of the interesting things that you mentioned there about Bruce Lee was when he brought Kung Fu over to the mainstream, he was kind of ousted by a lot of the more traditional elements of that cultural subgroup there because they didn't think that it was proper that non-Asian people be learning and practicing that. So, I mean, that was something, especially at that time, that was very unheard of, where he was openly teaching anybody who wanted to learn. And I feel like through that, it inspired not just an interest in Kung Fu, but also in a lot of the Asian cultures. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what's it really matter how somebody gets into learning about these things? The fact that they're broadening their horizons and more enriching themselves and exposing themselves to other cultures and other ways of thinking, other ways of doing things. How is that a bad thing in any way that you're expanding your worldview?
Right. I mean, these people who are upset with Iron Fist, they should be more upset that it's just fucking bad.
Yeah, I care less that he's a white.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they should really be concerned about. That's what they should be up in arms about.
I think they rushed it to production, and Finn Jones didn't even have much time to practice up on his kung fu.
Oh yeah, I think I read like one of the fight scenes had like 54 cuts.
Yeah,
they cut away 54 times in one fight scene because he didn't have the appropriate time to do the martial arts.
You got to feel for him.
Yeah. The actress who plays Colleen Wing actually looks like she knows what she's doing. Mm-hmm. She is probably the one bright spot. If I had to say there was a bright spot in the whole thing.
I wanted to say, a lot of the times when people in our day and age are critical of issues like this, I don't think they have enough context
Exactly.
Like beating up on Iron Fist is culture appropriation. And again, you're referencing like when this came out in the 70s. And I think people forget that, back in the early 70s, and we didn't really have diplomatic relations with China at all. They were the other big side of the Cold War. And after the Chinese Revolution went communist in 49, I think it was 49, we broke ties with them. And we fought the proxy war in Korea with China. And so it was a very, very cold relationship between the United States and China for decades. Until Nixon and Kissinger decided to go over, and this was 1972, when they attempted the détente. And Nixon went to China, and it was a huge thing. It reopened China, so to speak, to the West. And that was a great act of diplomacy. And it kind of, started China on the road to a modern country again.
Sure.
And break away from their communism and reestablish connections with us, and to bring their culture back to the United States, which was hungry for it. And this was one avenue through which we got it, was stuff like Iron Fist and Shang-Chi,
Sure.
Master of Kung Fu. So I think in our day, looking back and saying, it's culture appropriation, is really kind of ignorant. Ignorant in the sense that they just don't understand the time this came from.
Right.
And I wish they'd do their homework a little more before they criticize things like this.
And that's the thing, is having watched the entire series as best as I could, and not like put my hand in a blender or something like that to take my mind off of it for a second. Nowhere did I notice anything at all demeaning or defacing or degrading to anything.
Exactly.
Like Colleen Wing. If anything, they should be happy about, the social justice warrior groups ought to be happy that there's a female character who she goes, the daughter of the dragon that goes in and whips the hell out of all these great big burly street fighters.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, wait a second, we can't do anything to make you guys happy. Like, no matter what we change, no matter what we put in there, you guys are going to be, the social justice warriors can be mad about whatever it is just to be mad. I think that's all they do, is just be mad. Can't accept and celebrate the high points of something and go, hey, maybe this could have been different, but we appreciate what you did. It's like, no, the entire thing is terrible. The entire idea needs to be scrapped all the way back to the source material. We need to Fahrenheit 451 this, burn all the books related to it, and start fresh. I just don't get that.
The Doctor Strange movie got a lot of flack too, because Tilda Swinton
Yes.
was the ancient one. I thought that was kind of neat, and it's funny because they didn't get mad that they changed it into a female. They didn't get mad because she was an Asian, and I'm like, but they don't get any credit for doing the female thing. I don't,
Right. Exactly.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, I'm not familiar with the source material. That's my thing, is, growing up at a later day, I'm not just familiar with some of the source comics just because they were well before my time.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Doctor Strange is trained by the Ancient One.
Right.
In the mystic arts and everything, like Danny Rand is trained in Kunlun.
Yeah, so I don't understand what the issue is. So they're mad that they didn't have an Asian playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a degree I get it, but to a degree I don't. I'd say let's remain loyal to the source material and the time in which it was written in that context.
Yeah, like that's, and going back to all this, that's my biggest thing, is if it was a deviation from the source material, okay, now I get why you're upset. I get where the issue is, that you've deviated for preference of one group over another, deviation from the source material. But if the source material is written how it is, and you're continuing of the source material, or just doing like a movie or a TV version of the source material, I mean, if you're going to be upset at the source material, don't be upset at what people did, and don't be mad that they didn't make some kind of wide change on it.
The next one I wanted to bring to you guys, David Gabriel of Marvel came out to explain their recent sales slump. Their sales are down, and part of that could be due to DC's Rebirth, which has been very popular, and they're playing it very much by the book.
Right.
DC is, and Marvel's still kind of carrying along with their diversity in comics and changing a lot of their characters, and for some reason their sales are slumping. And David Gabriel has said that is why, in his talks with big comic book shop owners and distributors, that's the feedback they're getting from the customers in the stores. And so he came out and said that, and of course he's been attacked for that, saying that people didn't want any more diversity and they didn't want so many female characters. So what do you guys think is truly responsible for their downturn in sales? Is it just pushing too much diversity, or DC's just doing a better job at the moment, or?
I'd say DC's probably just doing a better job at the moment. I don't know. It's really hard to say. I mean, there are a lot of things that go into why comic books sell and why they don't sell. But I mean, he is saying basically that he's gotten this feedback from shop owners about the diversity and the extent of all the female characters. I know I dislike the female Thor. I dislike the female Iron Man. They just don't. It seems like that stuff has just been jammed in there. There doesn't seem to be any kind
bit
of
obvious.
Yeah, it's just a little bit obvious. If there was going to be a character in the Thor comic that could actually be worthy of picking up Thor's hammer, wouldn't it be Sif?
I'd read the hell out of that.
Yeah, I would, and that's an established character that has mythological background, that has comic background. Like, that's an established character who would totally make sense as picking up the mantle of Thor.
Right, and people who like Thor would like that. Right? I would read that.
I'd read the hell out of that.
I would read the hell out of that. I would, but I don't want to read this other Thor. I don't want to read it.
Well, and just kind of going off an article here on Comic Book News is actually John Romita Jr., who did some of the illustrations or the ink work for iconic pieces of comic book history like Spider-Man 129, the first appearance of the Punisher. And I don't know, somebody has pissed in his Cheerios because he is hating on Marvel in this article. And it's basically, Marvel, they're saying that Marvel doesn't care. Marvel's literally just going through to change these characters just for the diversity, for the wider fan base. And he's saying that that's part of why DC is doing so good, is that they're not replacing characters. They're making new and exciting and entertaining characters that people want to read. One of his things that's going in there, he said Marvel has quit hiring high-paid and well-known artists and is now going with high-paid, well-known writers. And they're just kind of cramming the artists in at the end. And instead of like going through and changing things, they're like, oh, we're just going to change this just because we want to. We're not going to have any logical flow with it. And he pretty much goes off and is like, yeah, DC's got it the right way. DC's making new characters that people want to read, and this is the way it needs to be done. Not Marvel's beating people over the head with diversity for the sake of diversity. Because then one thing he goes on to say is people don't want to see their established characters stripped down and taken away and changed. They're all for new characters that may be similar. But it's kind of like Marvel's like, okay, we've done all the characters that we're going to do. Now we're just going to do different versions and edit them down and change race or gender or things like that. And he goes on to say, he's like, that's not the way to do it. He said, DC has got it right. Marvel's totally killing themselves, cutting their own throat with it.
It's funny how they're producing both at the same time, like good examples and bad examples. Like, you didn't like the Thor.
Right.
And you didn't like the Iron Man. But, I mean, I like this Black Panther. They brought in a high-name, world-class black author to write that. That's a good way to promote diversity, and it's been selling like hotcakes for them. I think it's been their top seller the last several months.
And, I mean, just from what you said, I want to read it. It sounds interesting. I mean, I'm all about that.
Yeah. And I didn't have a big problem with the Miss Marvel thing when they brought in, that made her, changed her into the Pakistani teenager Muslim. She kind of took over the mantle from Miss Marvel, and it wasn't down your throat. It was just like, here's the new Miss Marvel. Present that as the normal, not as an agenda. And it was.
And I feel like that was what they really pushed hard with the new Iron Man. Is you couldn't get there when they first announced it for about a month and a half. You could not get away from that. We've got a strong, independent, black female in a STEM field going on to be a science-based superhero. I was like, all right, okay. I see what you're doing, and yeah, I'm good.
I think with all the success that Marvel's had in the movies, that sometimes we also just forget that sometimes Marvel's been known to make some pretty poor decisions when it comes to their characters. I mean, right now...
Are you trying to segue to my next topic?
Well, maybe but I can say one thing right now is that, the world's greatest comic, the Fantastic Four, isn't even published by Marvel right now. Yeah. They don't even publish that book anymore.
The Fantastic Four is not published by Marvel?
No, it's not.
Really?
It was canceled all because of the movie deals that they had with Fox owning the rights to Fantastic Four.
The first movie wasn't horrible.
I don't know.
Shut your whore mouth.
The best Fantastic Four movie ever made was The Incredibles. But,
True.
right, but they don't publish the Fantastic Four, and that was like one of my favorite books, and it was the flagship of the Marvel comic book empire from the 60s, up through the 80s.
Why can't
until
they
the
make
X-Men
a good
basically kind of take over?
Fantastic Four movie?
Because of who has the rights to it.
Is that what it boils
Yeah,
down
well,
to?
Marvel lost the rights to it. I mean, obviously, the current, movie culture, Marvel/Disney, they could definitely make a good Fantastic Four movie, but they can't get the rights away from Fox to do so.
And as long as Fox cranks out something,
Right.
every so many years they maintain the rights.
They maintain
Yeah.
their rights.
Yeah,
They
crap,
maintain their
just hold
rights.
on to
And there's been a lot of movies historically that have been made solely for that purpose that weren't even finished, didn't even go through post-production.
Yeah.
That were literally just made to say, hey, we made a movie with these characters. We've now renewed our contract.
Right, and just because Fox has refused to deal with Marvel's kind of, give them the middle finger and said, well, okay, we're not going to help you by publishing comic books.
Yeah.
So they canceled the publication of the Fantastic Four without a thought to the fans out there, the readers, who love those characters. So not great decision making.
Yep. Likewise, like I said, this just kind of blew up with the release of X-Men Gold #1. They released kind of a reboot of the X-Men. X-Men Gold Team is going to be under the leadership of Kitty Pryde, which is cool. I always like Kitty Pryde.
I could dig that.
Yeah. The problem is they hired an artist. I'm going to get the name wrong. Hardin Sayaf. He's the artist on the first three issues, and that's a great responsibility. I mean, you're taking on the X-Men first three, of a new run. But in issue #1, he slipped in several how could I say it? Religious references, especially political events taking place in his home country of Indonesia. One of which especially can be construed as very anti-Semitic and anti-Christian. Marvel didn't notice it. They let it slip. And again, if you're from Indonesia, you probably wouldn't pick up on it. But eventually people did. The guy was sacked immediately. The issue was taken off the shelves.
Yeah, as he should have been.
Yeah, as he should have been.
Agreed.
So I wanted to bring that up and just say, there's some more egg on Marvel's face. And I wonder, is this hand in hand with the other stuff? They're trying so hard to open up diversity. They need to be careful what they get sometimes, or I don't know. What do you fellas think?
My biggest question right off the bat is I've assumed that's got to be a very lucrative, well-paid, nice, cushy job to be like the lead artist for the first issues of a new run for Marvel.
From X-Men too.
Yeah, for the X-Men, for a major flagship comic series like that. What would compel somebody so much to put those references in there and potentially risk having that job? That's like you're going through and drawing dicks in the background of the comic or something like that. I mean, but worse.
He didn't back down. After he was sacked, he came out on social media and said that he realized his career is over, but that's fine with him because he was spreading the truth of his religion.
Yeah.
But you're spreading it in such a subtle and subversive way that you're not really spreading it it's more just like a circle jerk for the people who know what it is already. I mean, I saw it and I was like, I would never have caught that in a million years. But like you said, somebody from that area would totally know what it was.
Yeah, they would have picked up on it immediately.
Right. Yeah, it's offensive.
I don't know what that guy was thinking.
It's offensive, but it really just boils down to an employer and an employee thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they have a lot of minor contractors doing some artwork for them, and I know they put a lot of those contracts on hold because now they're a bit timid about what may come of it.
Having to go through and vet each piece of artwork.
Yeah,
so
maybe some other Indonesian artists who were on tap to do some things, and now it's like, well, let's be careful what we're getting, and that sucks for them because they're doing their work as an artist. And, oh well, enough controversy for 1 month.
Let's get back to fun stuff.
I know, right? I hate this stuff.
We're going to look over and you're going to be swinging from your mic stand or something. Jeez, we keep going down this dark rabbit hole.
Well, can I say one thing I want to add?
Yeah,
this kind of reminds me of there was a when Star Wars came out, they had tons of stuff, Kenner toys and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But there were always these cards too, trading cards that came out. And I don't remember which set it was. But evidently there was a pissed off employee at the card manufacturer, and there was a C-3PO card that made it into one of the sets that actually had a penis. I have seen.
Was it card. Golden? Was it
a golden? Too? It was a golden penis, a golden metal penis, and I have seen this card. It exists, and I think it's pretty rare.
What was the street value on the C-3PO or C? Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. The dick pic card of that is like that's got to have some high street value to it to the right person.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that sounds like that would be a good card for the rocket firing Boba Fett. Just saying.
I was looking over Scott Dills, our producer, who's the biggest Star Wars fan I know.
You don't have one of those cards in the back,
your
do you?
story on this one.
Okay,
so he's actually got all of the C-3PO dicks just hidden away.
I mean, so you got reason to be proud, or was?
Oh yes, he was packing. Yeah, he was a Liam Neeson.
Oh,
wow. Was he like a Ron Jeremy kind of like?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. It gives new meaning to protocol droid.
Exactly. She's going to have a bad feeling about that.
Wow. Okay, thanks, guys. If any of our intrepid listeners would like to chime in on this topic or anything else you've heard covered this week on Geeks Boutique, you can drop us an email at geeksboutiquelex, all one word, at gmail.com. Check us out on Twitter at geeksboutique1, or message us on Instagram with geeks_boutique_Lexington. You can also find our Facebook page at Geeks Boutique Lex. We'd love to hear from you, and if you have a good comment, maybe we'll read it out on the show. Maybe one lucky listener can chime in, and we'll think their take is unique, and we'll read it out and give you credit on air.
Absolutely.
Or we'll totally steal it for ourselves and pass it off as some of our own nuggets.
Yeah, we may
of
also
wisdom.
ridicule you. So
yeah, it's like a 50-50 shot.
Follow us now, brave fanboys and fangirls, as we lead you into a realm of terror and gore. It's time for us all to face our fears and step into the mausoleum.
Well, in the mausoleum this month, I wanted to talk about a horror trade paperback named Lock and Key by Joe Hill. Again, this is volume 1, called Welcome to Lovecraft. I really wasn't aware of it until I went down to Collectibles, etc. to pick up our advance tickets for Logan, and they had it sitting right there on the counter, and I just immediately grabbed it, no thought involved. I saw Lovecraft and Hill, and I knew it had to be mine. Yes, first volume, Joe Hill is the author, Gabriel Rodriguez does the art. I don't know how much you guys know about Joe Hill. He's a pretty famous horror author. I think his first publication was a collection of short stories called 20th Century Ghosts. I'm about halfway through that. It's very good. And I've completed his other novel, Heart-Shaped Box. And I believe recently he had another novel come out called The Fireman. I was introduced to him originally through Dr. Tom Marksbury's course at the university about horror, and we read one of his short stories. And I've just loved him. He's a very fast-paced writer, keeps things moving. He has a very good grasp of the horror genre. He's also, if you didn't know, the son of Stephen King.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I think that's why he goes with the name Joe Hill, so that he doesn't... I think he wants to earn his own way.
I respect that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I picked up Lock and Key. It's a pretty good story. It's very dark, so buyer beware. It's very gory. Very dark. It's about a family, and I don't want to throw out too many spoilers because I hope people will go out and pick it up and read it. A family that encounters some difficulties and move back east to Lovecraft, Massachusetts, and their family home.
Little Portsmouth Inn kind of thing.
Cthulhu.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of Lovecraftian motifs in it.
Oh, there wasn't?
Yeah, I think they just used the names to evoke evoke horror in general, evoke the master.
Unexplainable madness and terror and worshipping of the elder gods, just subliminally.
Yeah, and later maybe some of that more on. I haven't read past the first volume yet, so later on they might get more into it. So they move back east into their kind of ancestral manse, And the house itself kind of has a character to it. It almost is a character in the novels. There's a lot of magical properties that it has.
What, like a +1 flaming sword or something? Or?
Like the doors aren't necessarily doors. You go through a door and something else might happen to you. A lot of different effects.
So they're portals.
They can be a portal, or they'll change you in some way. Or
Sweet.
For example, the youngest child, he discovers one where he steps through it and turns into a ghost form. His body falls down on the floor, and he's able to go around as a ghost and watch what his family members
I
are
would
doing.
totally use my powers for evil. Is there like a door that makes you like a super sexy like bodybuilder model kind of thing? Like I need to find that door.
I think there's a gender. There's a door that swaps your gender.
You would never see me again. I'd just be hanging on the other side of the door.
Never leave my room.
Where's Zach? Oh God, we don't know. We don't even want to think about it. Yeah, exactly. Just be like, hey, I'll see you guys later. I got stuff and things to go do.
Yeah, so like I said, it is pretty grisly and pretty dark. It's more, I would say, like slasher kind of horror. Like the page I'm looking at now is page 64 in the book, where the serial killer in the story is stabbing out the security guard's eyes with a pair of scissors.
Ouch.
Very gory, very intense.
That's one thing I hate, man, is eye injuries. Like even working in the medical field and like real deal eye injuries, I hate it. For some reason, if somebody has got eye injuries or the Achilles tendon, I'm done.
Man, the eye is gross, dude.
I'm just not having it. Yeah.
I mean, I could never wear contacts. I mean, who can? People that touch their eye, there's something wrong with them.
That's why I've never gotten.
There's a lot of things wrong with me. Maybe that's why I can wear contacts. But
Really?
Yeah. There's just something about eye injuries, at least in movies and media, that it's like, one, it's so over the top, but two, I just cringe to see.
Well, now we know your weakness.
Oh yeah, eye
injuries.
injuries, man. Eye injuries and that Achilles tendon. If somebody's got like the House of Wax, I don't know if you ever saw that, but like the opening scene where Paris Hilton gets her foot run through with a pole, like through the Achilles tendon. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm done.
Well, you could do all the damage to Paris Hilton you want. It wouldn't faze me a bit.
Well, yeah, but it's something, for some reason, those two body parts just, I'm out on that. I don't know why. That's my area of issue.
I wonder what she's up to nowadays. Paris Hilton, if you're listening, drop us an email at Geeks Boutique Podcast. But anyway, I give the book overall a fear factor of 3 out of 5. Honestly, it kind of, the art is a little cartoony for my taste, and it kind of detracts from the scariness of it a little bit.
I see. Yeah, I could see that.
So you can take a look at it if you want to.
Yeah,
John.
man. Let me take a look.
They're very mature themes. Of course, there's lots of gory, grisly murders going on. There's rape. There's a trucker BJ at one point. So not for the kids. But the art's just a little bit on the cartoony side.
Now how I'm curious. What's
you want to hear all about the trucker BJ?
No, I want to know what the difference between a trucker BJ and a regular blowjob is. Like now
Are you talking about BJ and the Bear?
No, they're
or the trucker's name. We've gone down this rabbit hole, and now I'm fixated on what the trucker BJ is.
Does he have a
code of the road,
Does he have a
right?
chimpanzee?
Like if you're trying to get somewhere and you need to do the trucker a favor, and
okay,
if you're
that kind
hitchhiking.
of BJ.
Oh, okay. So it's just like a little roadhead is what we're looking at here.
Yeah, the serial killer in the story is trying to catch up to the family. He needs to travel all the way across the country, so he hitches rides with truckers.
Through the power of sucking dick, I shall murder this family more expediently.
That shows you
Excellent.
how much of a
Excellent.
sociopath he truly is, I guess, if you're willing to go down on a dude to get a lift.
Yeah, there are some dark pages in this. I can see that. There's a lot
It's
of
dark thematically. It's dark as all get out.
Yeah, but you're right. The art is a little detract. I can see where it could detract from the horror aspect of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good artist. It just seems a little.
It's not the perfect fit for the book, I would say.
I wouldn't think. No,
Even though
not.
it's a good read.
Right. Gabriel Rodriguez is the artist, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all right, ghouls. The morning sun has vanquished the horrible night. It's time to change your shorts and steady your nerves for Hillbillies on Film.
Settle in and uncork your favorite homemade wine. In Hillbillies on Film, we give our backcountry thoughts on film and long-form television. Highfalutin Hollywood types we ain't, but we might have a thought or two worth your while. Sit a spell and listen now, you hear? Hillbillies on Film!
So this month we're going a bit off script to bring you something new. Our erstwhile producer-in-chief, Scott Doesn't Fuck Around Dills, has the newest trailers queued up for Thor Ragnarok and Star Wars Episode 8. So we're going to give those a quick look and give our initial thoughts.
All right.
Here we go with Thor Ragnarok. Oh, looks like that hurts.
I know what you're thinking. How did this happen? Well, it's a long story.
Yes.
Can you really do that to Mjolnir?
She can. She can do whatever she wants, apparently.
Fucking Zeppelin.
They must have given a Truck or BJ to somebody to get to use Zeppelin in their film.
Yeah, because I've heard Robert Plant's kind of a dick when it comes to like royalties for his music. So, like you have to give you definitely have to give a Truck or BJ.
Oh look, man, this is fucking Disney money.
Does that now make all of like the Norse goddesses Disney princesses?
Good point.
Think about that for a second. Leia's now a Disney princess.
What do you guys think about all the 80s kitsch in this?
Oh, the fucking executioner. Did you see him?
No.
Loki with some daggers back there. They cut his hair off. That's a jerk move.
But I feel like it just makes him that much more badass. But like he kind of makes you think now of like Russell Crowe in Gladiator. Like that's who I'm picturing now.
Do you think he should say that to the Hulk?
Exactly, yeah. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I know he's supposed to be kind of naive, but I don't know why he's so excited because, like, even when they were on the same side during the Avengers, Hulk still whipped the shit out of him. So, like, he should know how this is about to go. Like, I'm not entirely sure, like, I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, the fight between Thor and Hulk. But, I mean, Hulk, as a character who gets stronger, the angrier it gets, the more you hurt him. What do you do against that? He's lost Mjolnir. Now all he's got is like a sword and shield. I mean, I don't know what's cool about those sword and shield. Maybe they'll explain it, but it seems kind of like rinky-dink, you know. Here you go. Here's the leftovers of the last guy you ripped in half.
Right. Now, the Hulk was, at one time, actually knocked out by Iron Man in the comics. But, of course, Iron Man's armor seized after that, and there was a whole other issue devoted to Ant-Man going inside of Iron Man's armor to unlock.
This sounds like some like weird erotic fan fiction that I don't know if I'm on board with.
That trailer
it's got a lot going on. It's busy.
It's freaking awesome.
Like I'm excited. I like it. I mean, as you know, I'm covered up in Norse mythology tattoos, so like I'm all about that stuff. So like I think it's gonna be great. I'm curious. Yes. You know who the woman's supposed to be. It looks like she's supposed to be maybe Hel.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as who she's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Hela or Hela, however they pronounce that. And she's got the classic Jack Kirby design. I mean, that headdress. I mean, it's...
That twisted antler.
Oh, yeah. Those antlers. I mean...
It's a good look.
See, yeah. I never saw that rendition of the character. I mean, the only, my only, I guess, visual source for Hel is the actual, like, the descriptions from, like, the Poetic Edda, where she's like blue on one side and she's a half skeleton on the other. I was like, that'd have been way scarier, but a shit ton more money in CGI.
She's half dead, half alive, basically. But man, come on. I mean, that is so metal. I mean, in a movie called Ragnarok, I mean, you can't get more metal than that.
So my question is which side is Loki supposed to be on? Because I know which side he's supposed to be on as far as
Loki's side.
Like on the Norse mythology side, he's obviously against the gods, but
obviously
it looked in a sense there that he was going maybe like on their side. Like
I think they're still playing with Loki a lot, and they really really don't know what to do with him yet in the movies. Anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, most definitely, even in the comics, I mean, Loki is always coming out as the bad guy for sure against the gods.
And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely certain of the deviations they make between the actual like mythology sources and the comics. But when in the mythology where Loki's got the three children, the serpent Jormungandr, the wolf Fenrir,
yes,
Hel with them. That's all one side of Ragnarok with the Jotun and everything else. So I'm kind of curious as to see like what they'll bring in from comics, if they'll bring anything in from actual source mythology with it, like history.
Well, it's funny you say that. I get a feeling that a lot of the Thor that we've seen probably sees its roots in the Walt Simonson run of Thor in the comics back in the 80s, and he actually does pull in a lot of mythology like that, with Loki siding with him and Loki's children, and that he's totally against the gods, and you've got Sitter, who comes in and burns the house down. You know what I mean? So
it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be great.
Just looking at the previews, I don't know, my gut feeling is that Loki may kind of ride in and help out. I mean, with this sort of existential threat to Asgard and everything that he wants to control, I would think I would hack him off. And
sure.
And plus, it's kind of his brother still, and it's okay for you to beat up on your
that's
brother.
kind of the vibe I've got. It's like, if anybody's going to burn down Asgard, it's going to be me.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm going to kick the shit out of you for trying to take and steal my thunder. I mean, he's got enough, grandiose about him to where if anybody's going to be the evil mastermind, it's going to be him. So he's not going to let anybody burn his anthill.
Right, and that is totally
without him.
And that is totally against the mythology.
Oh yeah,
and it is totally against Walt Simonson's Thor run as well. But I still feel like a lot of the Thor that we're seeing, well, obviously it's based in Unlimited. Is that what it was called? The Unlimited? The Ultimates. The Ultimates. The Ultimate stories. But I still feel like there's a lot of Walt Simonson in this. Walt Simonson, by the way, is one of the greatest comic writers and creators of all time, in my opinion. But
okay, that's on record. You're out there. That's official now.
Yeah, that's. I mean, now.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Listeners, write in. Tell John how he's wrong.
I was going to
No way.
say, is that worth a trucker blowjob? Though? Like that's the ultimate question. I think that's going to be the theme for the rest of the show.
It's
now
the title of episode 1.
Is Trucker BJ? We're
BJ
totally
and the
different.
Bear.
I just feel bad that I had to tell you about that, Zach. And
Like I said, I had a lot of questions. You seemed to emphasize the trucker part. Like I didn't know if that was a technique or something like that. Like I was curious. I had questions.
one of these days you'll break down the side of the road and you'll be like, I know how to get out of this situation.
Yeah,
18-wheeler to
AAA.
come rolling by.
Yeah, AAA and a cell phone. I'm not nearly cute enough and don't have enough cut-off shirts to stand
Where's
there.
the adventure in that?
Yeah, there's also less syphilis and herpes in that as well too.
Oh.
Okay, on to
Maybe we should get on to Star Wars.
Star
Yeah,
Wars.
let's go on to Star
Exactly.
Wars.
I'm sure there's at least one Trucker BJ in the Star Wars universe.
Episode 8, the Trucker BJ.
The last Trucker BJ.
All right.
I mean, you just see Finn's face there in the first picture, but he's definitely in a Trucker
I hope he doesn't
BJ.
spend the whole movie like in the recovery unit.
I don't know. I was never like super impressed with Finn.
Okay,
Here we go.
Where we at?
I just love the lead up music to it. I mean, it's all very ominous.
Hello, Ray.
I'll be honest with you. I jumped a little bit because I was like watching this at like 3 a.m. First time I saw it, I jumped back a little bit when that hand shot up.
The Lucasfilm logo always makes me a little chill.
Where's the Disney castle?
Hey, we're back in Ireland. Is that Luke speaking?
That fucking music always gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just a nerd boner you could carry me away with right there.
Vader's mask all smashed up?
No, I think that is Kylo Ren's
old.
helmet, Matt. It's been smashed.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Found the emo raged himself.
Well, he does like go in there and straight up hack up part of the command center. So I could totally see him doing that.
Karate Kid shot.
Always on Christmas. I love how we've got like the Blue Angels equivalent right here with a little smoke show going on.
Now, if something happens to that black X-Wing, I'll be pissed.
You're going to have to repaint yours.
Has he got Sith eyes going on there, Kylo?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure once you kill your parents, that like solidifies the dark side.
What does that fucking mean?
No good can come of it kind of thing?
Luke is going to be a Sith.
Is Luke going bad?
I mean,
I can't believe that. He's the new hope.
All right.
he was the New Hope. Now he's an angry old
Now
man.
he's old and busted.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know.
Our resident Star Wars expert has yet to chime in.
Oh God, he's falling over
he
with
is.
froth at the mouth. He's seizing at this point. Like,
What do you think, Scott?
He's
What do you
displeased.
think?
Well, in Return of the Jedi, when Luke is fighting with his father in front of the Emperor has pitted them together. Luke, he turns. He actually turns for a split second, and he's
Liar.
I think he is.
And no. Disregard Jason. I'm curious. I'm curious. I want to hear.
I really do. You see it in his face. If you are, kind of reading the body language and everything, like he's seriously thinking about it. He's got the lightsaber in his hand.
Right.
Darth Vader is laying on the floor. His arm is cut off. He's wheezing. He's having all this trouble breathing, and Luke's like really struggling with it at that point. Like he's really thinking about he's gonna. He's idealistic. He's gonna take down Darth Vader. Yeah, Palpatine's kind of a dick, but maybe this is the right way. Maybe I should hook up with the Emperor and we can make the things in the galaxy right.
Make a change from the inside, basically.
Yeah, just to make a change from the inside. And see, that's been the whole game with Darth Vader from the beginning. Anakin Skywalker is he wants to do the right thing.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But
Shades of gray.
He's going about it the wrong way. And I think Luke actually almost turned there for a minute. And there's been kind of similar sort of ideas in the expanded universe with this whole playing with the dark side thing. It's just like you said, just like so many shades of gray.
Right.
Basically, but that's my take. So
what about the part where the Emperor's sitting in the chair and he's got the lightsaber right there, and Luke's he's daring him to take it, challenging him to take it. That's a good. How to take it.
Yeah, but it's almost like it's ramping up. It's like he's testing Luke repeatedly.
You think that's why he's out there by himself? He's taking himself as far away as possible, so he might not. If he gives in, he might not be able to do so much damage.
Honestly,
That's a good question.
Self-isolation.
I don't know. I just with Carrie Fisher passing away, it's really kind of uncertain what they're going to do with the new trilogy, and they're kind of floundering right now, I would think, a little bit, because now 8 they would have to sort of remake it. I would think.
Well, they said they already shot all of her parts were in there, or like almost all of her parts were already shot.
Yeah, but for any kind of plan that they may have had going forward beyond the parts that they shot, they may have to turn around and
they have
rewrite,
to plan.
change.
They have to plan for that eventuality that Princess Leia is going to be no more. So, I don't know. To me personally, Luke turned into the dark side kind of seems like a dead end to me. And honestly, it almost seems like it's really bad writing. Like it would seem like they're painting themselves into a corner, and they're,
it's like you said, he's already done that in return.
Right.
So why do that again?
And I hope that's not where they're going, but you never know. So we've seen bad Star Wars movies before. Yet there, I just said it. So
yeah, like 3 of them.
Exactly. 4 if you count the Christmas special.
Ooh,
yeah, nobody knows about that.
The Wookiee thing.
Yeah. Now I am curious though. What do you mean by it's time for it to end?
I think we're probably being played. Like they're putting this out there as like.
Well, yeah.
Something's
because now you've got people like us that are sitting around all over the country. So they're talking more and more about the Star Wars movie, and it's getting that just more and more solidified in their head. It's a great marketing campaign.
Right. Has anybody heard anything about the rumor about the titles, about the combination of the titles? Force Awakens, The Last Jedi.
So that's kind of awesome. Like I kind of got a little bit of chills here. Like that's kind of sexy. I could dig that.
So what would be the third title to that?
From a long nap.
And he or she kicks ass.
Exactly. and needs 5 more minutes. like there we go. The Force Awakens. The Force wants to go back to sleep.
I guess we'll have to wait till December 15th to find out.
Yep. It's our Christmas present.
We'll all get each other the exact same thing. A ticket to Star Wars.
Tickets to Star Wars. This time Zach will actually show up. Standing there drying my tears in the lobby.
That is another story for another unrelated podcast.
That's another podcast. No truckers were involved.
No truckers or Zacks were hurt in the making of the story.
Okay, cosplayers, this is our tip of the homemade fancy hats to you. Our resident cosplay virtuoso, Zack Gregory, comes to you now with all the juicy cosplay news and tips you need to be ogled by nerds until your heart's content. Take it away, Zachary.
All right, so this past weekend I attended the Indiana Comic-Con, and that's actually slowly becoming one of my favorites, at least for the area that I've gone to.
I love Indianapolis.
For this time of year. It's a great venue. It's the layout's wonderful. There's plenty of room to move. You don't feel like you're like crammed in there, but there was actually a lot of really amazing costumes. And unfortunately, my phone crapped out halfway through, so I didn't get to take as many pictures as I wanted to. One of the ones that caught my eye was there was actually a guy dressed just like Colonel Sanders. like why we're cosplaying the Colonel, I didn't ask, wasn't my place. The fact that the guy looked straight off the Colonel and had like that grandfatherly attitude as he's walking around. He's got a KFC bucket and it has like a stuffed chicken coming up out of the top of it. I was like, wow, that's just amazing. Like I'm just shocked by that.
He wasn't doing the George Hamilton Kentucky Fried Chicken from the commercials. He was like super dark tan,
Yeah, no. He was this guy was the Colonel.
We don't get that much sun in Kentucky.
Like, I feel like if he'd gone into any, like, KFC, Meals on the House, like, they were just going to fall for it. See, there was Garth and Wayne from Wayne's World. That was pretty awesome. Wow. And it was a man and woman, and the woman looked just like Wayne, and that was kind of feel bad, but, like, hey, that's at least, you're playing to your strengths on this one. Trying to think, there was a Chaos Space Marine from Warhammer 40K. And definitely a follower of the Blood God. And the guy had actually built the entire outfit out of really nothing more than glue and the type of foam's eluding me right now. It's the EVA foam. There we go, EVA foam. And just with a heat gun just to mold it into shape. And the nice thing about EVA foam, for anybody that doesn't know, is it's super cheap. It's actually the stuff that they use for like floor mats and gyms. So you can get it by the squares for that, for a thicker one, or you can buy like reams of it that are about like a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch thick. And that's like the ultimate cosplay material just because it responds so well to that heat gun. You can put it into any shape you want. Take the heat gun to it, bend it, and it'll hold that shape, and then just glue it together. And he had some painter stilts up in there to give him some extra height, but that was super awesome. Another one that really jumped out at me was Captain Mexico. This guy, he had taken the Captain America shield.
A luchador?
No, better. He had the Captain America shield and had painted it red and green for the colors with some white in there as well. He had this like little tiny miniature sombrero. And that he was wearing. Had like a Banditos kind of bandana up over his mouth, had a poncho on, and carried around like some maracas. Like when he'd pose for a picture, he'd have the maracas up like it was a sword, like he was getting ready to jab you with it. And I was like, that's amazing. Like I have to have your picture. And I think that's oh, and as I was walking in, I saw a furry suit Thor, to where somebody had a lion furry suit and had made a Thor costume that fit the lion furry suit. Wow. I don't know what the name of this thing would be.
Okay.
Yeah, like Thor Lion Son or something like that. But it was amazing. I think that's one of the things I love about this cosplay stuff is that people will take established things and just totally put them in a box and just shake them up. And just make whatever they want to make out of it and just run with it and have fun. And I like, this is great. This is awesome.
That's great. Yeah. I love that. And not to go back to my obsession about Walt Simonson, but I'm going to. One time he turned Thor into a frog.
Yes.
So that would be great to see Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Thor frog get one of these things, man.
Make it happen, Zach. Make it happen.
We can make it. We can make you a Thor frog.
Don't
like
forget to make his ass watertight.
Yeah, exactly. Avoid that swamp ass from the costume later on in the day. Those thighs sticking together. Those were some of the biggest ones. I mean, the sheer amount of people dressed up. It seemed like there was also more people dressed up than there weren't. The one thing, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here, though, was the goddamn T-Rex outfits.
Oh, man.
Every fucking body had a goddamn T-Rex outfit on, and I just wanted to run through with just a sharp object and just deflate these fucking T-Rexes, man. I am what killed the dinosaurs. Fuck the meteor. It's Zack with a pair of scissors. He's taking them all out. And I'm all about having fun and all about enjoying things. And they're at this point, they're more like ironically funny. But now people are just running around in these goddamn T-Rex outfits, just knocking shit off of countertops and turning around and running into people. I'm like, no. Fuck you and your T-Rex.
There was a con, I think down in Tampa, like Elite Con or something they named themselves. They disallowed cosplay. No more. Our con is for the true comic book connoisseur.
Yes.
Fuck you. Fuck your elitist con.
Yeah.
It can kick rocks and eat shit for all I care. I'm not interested.
That's a dick move.
Yeah.
It is. It's nothing but a dick move. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, you want to be as inclusive as possible. I mean, we want to share all of this. You know what I mean? I mean, we want to share comics. We want to share cosplay. We want to share horror, science fiction, fantasy. I mean, you know, even the Power Ranger shit.
So, and you know, to take it on a serious note, that's one thing that I love about the whole cosplay thing, is that for some people this may be their only social outlet. That at the day-to-day, they're quiet, reserved. They're what Milton from Office Space, and you know they're not going to come out of their shell. They don't talk to people. They don't have a whole lot of social interaction. But when they put on that costume and they're that character, they get to be the them that they truly want to be and how they see themselves. And it really does. It allows for social interaction that would never have occurred otherwise under any other circumstances besides at that convention in that costume. And, you know, the other thing, we've talked about diversity the entire time, is people can be whoever they want to be. You've got men dressed as women, women dressed as men. And it's as inclusive of any event as you could possibly want to be.
Yes. I keep wanting to do a Princess Leia and have Laura do a Han Solo. She just won't have
it. We could do it. We could.
I want the buns.
We could make it we could do it more like a masculine Slave Leia outfit. I mean, and nothing says we have to do Slave Leia outfit.
I was thinking more like Forests of Endor Leia, but
we could do Forests of. Oh, come on, man! I've got to see the chain.
I'm sorry, I don't want to see helmet. Jason in a Slave Leia outfit. I'm sorry.
Or we could even do just like the Princess Leia robes and her in a. You know, here's the thing. Once fall hits, I don't know if you've seen the picture, but once fall hits, amongst the college girls, it's Han Solo season. They've all got the same outfit on, the little vests with the high boots.
First game of the home football season.
Exactly. It's Han Solo season, man. that shit's commonplace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could make that happen. And I got to, while up there though, I actually messed up her name at the very beginning of the podcast. I've been waiting to rectify that. It's actually not Jenny now, it's Sarah now. I don't know where I was getting that from. I think
we love you, Sarah.
Yeah, much love. You're a part of my childhood, and not only that was like a part of my childhood, but I didn't realize that she's actually like a professional model. Like when she's not doing voice actor stuff. So I was like, oh well, wow, okay. And you're really attractive. Like, you single? What's up? How's it going? But I actually got to meet Brianna Hildebrand from Deadpool. She was Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And my Comic-Con vest, it's got all my nerd patches on it and everything. I was in line to meet her, and she's like, dude, that vest is really awesome. Where'd you get that? I was like, $3 at Goodwill. I made it. And like for that brief second, I was on the same level as Brianna Hildebrand, and she was like interested in my stuff, and I was like, oh, and like little birds just like flying around, little hearts going off, popping everywhere. I was like, yes, let me tell you about this random vest that I made because I'm a nerd and had some free time and was like, hey, this is really cool, and maybe I'll get to look cool for a minute wearing this. So
did you do any cosplay yourself?
Not for that one, just because I was going up there strictly to get some autographs and buy some stuff, and I was busy the night before and didn't have anything to put together.
Well, we're going to Gen Con, same location
yes,
in August.
We're definitely going to Gen Con. Wow. The next thing being worked up, right now I've got my steampunk pirate outfit, which is making me literally want to pull every hair in my head out, because I've got a week left to do it for the Cincinnati Steampunk Symposium. At Crown Plaza Hotel, which is great. I go there every year. Love it. It's a super great crowd, super good event. Put on by Aloysius Fox. Now, if that's not like a steampunk name, like I don't know what is.
Aloysius
Fox. Like the man's a legend as far as that little circuit goes. But yeah, that, and then I really want to do like a Borderlands cosplay. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the characters from Borderlands at all, but it's there's one called Salvador, and he's this big burly dude. He's actually kind of a short guy, but his class is the Gunzerker, and so it's actually the entire art style for the game is cell shading. So now I'm practicing learning the cell shading makeup and how to cell shade clothing and everything.
Is Borderlands associated with White Wolf? Or maybe not. No,
I don't think so. I think they're just kind of like their own independent thing entirely. But no, I'd like to do one of those, and I'd like to do a group Overwatch cosplay. I think that'd be a lot of fun, getting everybody on it. We're going to have to indoctrinate Jason and you guys to more of the Overwatch characters. But it's, talk about diversity. That's the most diverse cast of everything you could possibly imagine. I mean, heck, they even go trans species to where like one of the characters is just a giant anthropomorphic gorilla.
Well, I guess we had that with the Thor lion.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of it. I mean, the Thor lion was truly something to behold. But no, Indiana Comic-Con was definitely a great time. I would just about have to go all 3 days to really take all of it in. I only had the chance to go the one day.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was definitely a good time.
Cool.
Well,
all right, friends, that's it for this month. Thanks for tuning in, and please let us know what you think. Our social media contact information is posted in the show notes as always, and we'd love to hear from sycophants and sociopaths alike. If you would, please give us a positive review on iTunes. That'll help us move up the charts and spread the word about our super awesome show. Until next month, keep your powder dry.
Our Zackism for this episode.
Regardless if it's cars, electronics, or relationships, if you can't fix it, fuck it up to where no one ever could. It's amazing I'm still single.
Music for the Geeks Boutique Podcast is performed, recorded, and owned by Kung Fu Lips and the Critical Hits. For booking information, please message us on our Facebook page at Geeks Boutique Lex.